We are back on Be the Best You, and I'm here today talking to Tim O'Brien. Tim is the owner of The Healthy Place, a vitamin and nutrition store in Madison, Wisconsin, that has grown from a mom and pop shop run by a single family to an $8 million per year business with 4 locations in just a decade. His passion for helping people through natural remedies began when Tim's mom used natural supplements to help her beat cancer when he was just a young child. He started working in the supplement industry in 2003, and in 2010, he and his wife opened up the very first store, which was originally called Apple Wellness. Since then, The Healthy Place has steadily grown into a force in the supplement industry in the Madison area and was voted Best Health Specialty Store by Madison Magazine in this year's Best of Magazine Awards, Best of Madison Awards. It's also been named Best Health Store by Madison.com and its Star of Madison Awards multiple times. Tim, welcome to the show.
Thank you, my friend. Thanks for making me sound so good there.
It's all true, though. It's all true. But if you've never met Tim, he has some of the best positive energy you'll ever come across. So Tim works out at the gym where I coach here in Madison, Wisconsin at 5:30 in the morning. And he walks into the gym and literally will come up to me and I'm coaching another session. He'll high five me, ask me how I'm doing. He'll go around, ask everyone how they're doing, building positive vibes. So Tim, just about every interaction I've ever had with you, you've been the super upbeat guy. How have you been able to be so upbeat and positive all the time?
Goodness, I'm probably getting ahead of ourselves, but I used to be really depressed as a younger guy, and I would point to my faith, my faith in Christ and in the Lord, and there's a sort of a joy that comes from that since I gave my life to Him when I was around 18 years old. So I get negative actually apart from people sometimes, and but if I have my head screwed on straight and I see other people like you, or humans have such value, and I'm just so passionate about encouraging people, and that kind of brings it right out. So I guess it'd be my faith, and it'd be the fact that humans are really valuable and special, and I get the chance to impact somebody in a great way. So that's the energy's there. I don't create it, to be honest. I'm not certain how it gets there.
Love it, man. Well, it brings out the best in others as well. And I want to get more into your story here about some of the things you already brought up. But, let's be honest right now. It's April 2020. We're in unprecedented times right now with people in the United States sheltering in place, quarantining to help prevent the spread of the coronavirus or COVID-19. It's a pandemic sweeping the world, depending on when you're listening to this. So, Tim, how has The Healthy Place been handling things during this time?
Wow. Yeah, I think everybody on the planet will remember, March and April 2020, because the COVID virus has hit us all uniquely in such a personal and specific way. And, even a little trauma, and PTSD as our families and our businesses have figured this process out. So for me, it hit me square in between the eyes. A couple weeks ago, I would have been saying don't worry about this. It's not a big deal. Virus isn't a big deal. It's not going to impact our lives that much. Just, carry on business as usual. Let's all stay calm. And to the point where, shelter in place and lockdowns and people can't come into the businesses, and what's going to happen to my business? Do I need to look at layoffs? Do I need to look at government protection programs that are being supplied? And it's been a very stressful last few weeks. It's been challenging, and thankfully, we've been able to keep our doors open. So that's huge. We've been able to maintain our service to the community. We've had to certainly adjust as a team. Usually, I'll give you an example, 5 to 8% of our sales would go through our website. Well, overnight, 30% now of our sales go through the website or our same-day delivery process. So that has, as you build a business, you hire people for logistics, you hire people for wellness, to be wellness consultants, you hire people to be marketing. So then all of a sudden, the ratios that you have for each one of those areas gets all jacked up and changed. So now all of a sudden my marketing director is driving a delivery vehicle to, drop off orders and our logistics department is completely overrun, and their eyes are sort of like bloodshot from trying to process all the orders. So it's been a really interesting flex, and it's impacted us dramatically in every facet of the organization. And thankfully, I have a team that's willing and actually even ready to contribute in whatever way they need to help maintain our mission. So it's been intense, but good.
No doubt it's been a challenge for everyone, especially for you. Like you said, it's now going to a lot more online orders, people who are doing things that aren't in their job titles, but that's great that you have a supporting staff helping you through it.
Amen, dude. Yeah, it's truly, truly cool.
Absolutely. So now let's get into your story. So we already talked a little bit about your mom overcoming cancer. So take me through that story and talk a little bit about your childhood and what things were like.
Yeah. So grew up in a kind of a divided home, if you will. Parents got divorced pretty young, and my mom mostly took care of us. And when I was maybe 4 or 5 years old, she developed thyroid cancer, which I remember being worried about, concerned about, seeing her go to the hospital, chemotherapy, radiation, and that. And then I remember hearing about how she started becoming more and more self-educated on natural alternatives. And so she started using natural supplements after the chemotherapy and the radiation to aid her recovery. And that had a massive impact in her health, to the point where she became passionate about the whole industry. So she got a job and became a manager at a mom and pop nutrition store growing up. So, and we were also homeschooled at that time. So we would often spend afternoons or days even at the nutrition store, in the back room doing our studies. And I got to overhear all of these stories develop, people battling chronic pain, stuck on Vicodin, and all the side effects that come in there. And across weeks or months, I'd hear about Susie or whoever, and how under my mom's advice and working with her doctor, she was able to get off of the Vicodin, in that type of example, and onto a natural nutraceutical. And more of those testimonies over the years, over the decades, kind of instilled understanding that there are natural alternatives to drugs. I began to understand this concept that pharmaceutical drugs treat a symptom and then damage the body in different ways, side effects, while a nutraceutical treats a symptom and has all these side benefits. So it became this like paradigm shift that I started to get excited about. And so that was my upbringing, and that's kind of like what instilled it into my DNA, if you will, and started that passion for natural alternatives, natural supplements, and that sort of thing. So that was my kiddo years, if you will.
Sure thing. And like you said, you saw your mom go through it. You saw how supplements, especially doing it the natural way, really helped her and allowed her to recover. And then from there on, her becoming the worker at the store, and you just saw people getting helped over and over again. And you really started to see the importance of this. So from there, let's take it to your teenage years. So I know you mentioned that, you're homeschooled for a while, and I know you went to high school after that, and you mentioned that you had some challenges in your life. So take me through like what things were like for you in like your teenage years.
Yeah. So man, the first maybe 12 years of my life, it was all about supporting my mom, divorce situation. I was sort of that support structure for the family. And, I remember having like little meetings with my sisters of how we could like make our lives better because of all the struggles we were facing. And so I was sort of that like support structure. But then when I turned like maybe around 13, it really turned sort of like to anger and depression. And I found my way into drugs and some hallucinogenics, and that sort of, and then I was no longer homeschooled at that point. I started going to public high school, and I found a group of people that were, loving and accepting, and they were the drug crowd. So with all of those sorts of pieces, like moving towards anger, moving towards depression, moving towards drugs, having that sort of people around me as well that were feeling similar ways. And I went down sort of like a dark path. And so I would steal on a regular basis from businesses. I would break the law in different ways too, like whether it was speeding or whether it was, I remember taking caution tape, and with my brother, we cautioned off like a busier road. So cars would just think that the road was closed. And, just one of those punk teenagers that were just messing stuff up just out of that place of anger and sadness and depression. One night it got crazy where I was, speeding, and then I see the police car turn around chasing me, and I floored it. I was going like 95, trying to go down this side alleyway and hit in a driveway, turned my car off. And, then the police officer found me, and I got like arrested, and he found some pot that I had in the vehicle. And, I was just getting in trouble with the law. My mind was not in a good place. And man, I didn't care about life at all. Like I didn't care. I didn't care if I died. I didn't care if I overdosed on something. I didn't care if I got thrown in prison. Didn't care if I would graduate high school. My grades were not there. I almost failed high school in general. Just didn't try, didn't care, didn't want to, and didn't see a reason to. So that was all culminating across maybe 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. And then September 11th happened. And my best friend was just shaken to the core on life, and like all these people died, and that September 11th just really hit him hard, and that turned his life around. He like gave his life to God and just quit the drugs and started like ultimately what I'd call like preaching to me, like, dude, you gotta like live your life for light and not darkness, and like God made a sacrifice for you, and you need to like take that. And I was just stoned in half of those conversations and playing video games and be like, all right, man, like whatever floats your boat, you just keep on doing you. And after about 3-4 months of him, my best friend, daily just about hammering me with truth, with like life, the value of life, like what God did, like light versus darkness and all this, I had my own encounter, if you will, where it was like, oh my gosh, I saw really clearly that my life was being ultimately like led by darkness, and it had no purpose and no function other than destruction. And that instead, what was being offered to me is like to live my life for God, for light, for a purpose, for people, to help people. Like you can either contribute or you can destroy. And sort of that hit me. It was January of 2003, 2002. And that was powerful. So that's sort of like what changed. So I made a decision at that point to give my life to things of value. And that's really, you asked earlier, like, where do you get this like pep in your step? It's like from that point on, there is such a joy that comes from that place of being able to impact people that has like, you can change a life. You talk about supplements. That's one area of awesome, but even just saying hi to you at the gym, it's like, oh, I can actually encourage Luke a little bit, that can add value to him just a little bit, even with just a greeting. And that sort of understanding of how you can impact a person's life in just tiny ways that build up to larger ways. I just love that whole concept. So that's really, I was 18, and that's where my life turned around, and was able to overcome a lot of those challenges.
Really appreciate you sharing that story. And I know that you obviously went through a lot at that point. So take me through, you said there was a moment or period in time where you turned your life around. Was there a specific event that happened? How did you go about like shifting your mindset? I know you mentioned your friend was, getting more spiritual, but was there like a specific event that happened that said like, Tim, you got to change your life around?
Yeah, it was in January. I think it was January 22nd, 2002, where I was, there's a cough and cold pill called Coricidin. And if you take 12 of those well, I shouldn't give the directions, but if you way the heck overdose on those and then smoke pot with it, it's like a dirty trip, you know. And I used to do that all the time, and you could probably die from it. So nobody should ever do that. I was so messed up, and it was sort of like that point where you realize, like, oh my gosh, just at the end of your rope kind of thing, and don't care about life. And, you know, who knows, maybe I was on the brink of death, but that's where I saw, and I was immediately like sober through this experience. But there was just a point where I saw it as clear as day, kind of like in the Matrix, where, you know, you're plugged into the Matrix. It's like a lie. It's like not real. And I just saw that so clearly, where it's like my life, I was just being led and controlled by the enemy, you know. And I could be unplugged and like just live life and actually like see it for what it really is. So that was the moment that everything changed for me, where it started the path. But it wasn't all, you know, roses after that either. It was, there was
actually, I want to pause you 1 second. How old were you at this point? Like you said, January 22nd, 2002. How old were you at that point? 18.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay, go ahead and continue.
Yeah. It was at that point where it started the process, but there was still like a year after that. I'm ashamed to admit, like, I was still lying about doing some drugs here and there. I was still smoking pot, and I wouldn't say that it was all perfect after that. It's just, then I understood the truth. I like understood that concept of like light and darkness and stuff. So that was the beginning of it. And then I've been growing and going after that, which is worthwhile ever since, or trying to.
Okay, great. So you found yourself spiritually at that point. At what point after that did you finally decide, like, okay, I need to stop doing that? And how did you finally make that decision in your head? Because I know there are others out there who are or have struggled with this. How did you finally, like, in your head, make that decision? Tim, you are done with this life and you are leading a new life at this point.
Boy, yeah, it's a really, really good questions. And I have other bad habits in my life that, you know, I haven't mastered. So that's where it makes me feel insecure to even give advice on that, or a solid, confident answer. You know, it was a year of it, and I think it was coming clean with my pastor at the time. That really helped, where it was just like I had been holding back this part of my life that I was hiding, and faced with opportunity. And that's at the same time is when I got my first job in the nutrition space, which was at GNC. And it was like right before that I just made a decision. I don't know, man. I wish I could add a little more value to that. It was just a building process of realizing the destruction that I was causing, how it was affecting my day-to-day life. And then the opportunity of, if I shed my weights, if you will, if I shed the chains, like, I can be free. And I just got to a point where I got so frustrated with the lie that I was living, and so frustrated with the negativity of the drugs.
Yeah, and I know that can be tough to share. So I appreciate you sharing that. So take me through then, you first joined the church. Like, how are you feeling, and how is this changing you?
Yeah, dude. Yeah, it's a good question. Good question. Like a lot of things, I think it was, you like kind of build who you are. You know, what's that? There's like a proverb or something that talks about, you know, careful what you think, because thoughts lead to actions, and actions lead to habits, and habits lead to character, and character leads to your life. So starting to build some of the ideologies through church, through listening and reading the Bible, to hanging around with the right kinds of friends, and being intentional about who I'm surrounding myself with. All of those elements started to build what I want to be, and the pursuit of that. So over time, that's where it was kind of like shedding different things, whether it was lying about the drugs, or whether it was about working hard at my job. I had a job at Culver's for a while, and I was just a lazy bum, and you started to gain some of these convictions in each areas. And it's almost like a flashlight, more and more as you grow, you start shining on these dark corners that expose things that I would want to be rid of. And so then you start to focus on those, and 3 steps forward, 2 steps back, that sorts of thing. But yeah, it was good. It was a growing process, and still am growing, man. It's an everyday thing,
That's so true. It is something that we're constantly working on improving, but clearly changing your environment, changing who you surround yourself with, getting to a low point, unfortunately had to happen, but that seemed to really kind of awaken you, as you mentioned, to take that next step forward and become that higher version of yourself. So at this point, you've joined the church, you've kind of, surrendered yourself to God. And how do you move forward from this? Like, what happens next in your life and in your journey at this point?
Yeah, that's where it was kind of cool. Because I looking back, I see that once I made some of those decisions to, align myself with truth, so to speak, it seems like things started to fall in place, and the next step was sort of like revealed to me. And so, right after I sort of like aligned myself with that truth, then I got offered the job at GNC, and I really enjoyed that, and helped people, and enjoyed figuring people's problems out, and offering some contribution to their struggle. And so pretty quickly, it was like 3-4 months after that, I was offered a district management position for a couple of GNC stores in the Madison area. So it was like, wow, maybe this is, the next step for me. Maybe this is a step towards being able to contribute more, and that sort of thing. So I accepted that. And then, doing that for some years, I realized I loved it even more, and my passion for it grew even more. So then after there was a side point, there was a corporate takeover of the franchise, GNC franchises that I managed, and everybody lost their jobs. So that was like super intense. But if a door closes, there's a window to open kind of deal. And that's what actually pointed me to, maybe it's time to open my own nutrition store. And that's what led Becky and I to, think about that, pray about that. Like, wow, okay, here we are, finding myself without a job. Like, what do I do next? And maybe we could open our own store. Like, could we do it? I don't know. Like, maybe we'd fail. We have to put everything on the line. That's kind of scary. We could totally F this up, kind of thing. And that's what led us to that. So that's in 2010. At that point is when we opened Apple Wellness.
Okay. So another setback right there happened. You lost your job as a district manager when the GNCs got shut down. So yet another setback that you had to overcome. At the time, like when you got let go and found out you no longer had a job, like what was your mindset like right away at that point? Did you instantly think like, hey, this is an opportunity? Were you down about it for a while? Like, take me through that.
Yeah. Yep. So I actually remember thinking that I was making pretty good money as a district manager, and I was thinking, man, and I remember even saying to God in a prayer one, take this from me. I just will do this forever. I really love it. And I wouldn't, unless you take it from me, I'm going to do this forever. So I remember saying that prayer, and it was interesting. It was like a week later that I lost my job. And it was at that point where I was like, interesting. I wonder. So it's because of that prayer that I actually had confidence going into a season of not having a job, and actually not being discouraged that I lost it. And it was only because of that prayer, or else I probably would have. But I did skip a point, because after I lost my job, it went into a season of like, what should I do with my life now? And there was a multi-level marketing, network marketing company called USANA that I was like, oh, well, man, this is still supplements. This is still helping people. Like, oh, I can get my own stream of income. And, I decided, like, let's do that. Let's try that. And I tell you, dude, it was the most discouraging, frustrating failure that I really tried to build it. I think I had 18 distributors, underneath me in the little pyramid structure. And, I got my family and friends to spend all their money on it. And it was, by the end of that thing, I felt bad for my friends and family that I got involved. I felt personally absolutely like a failure because it wasn't working, and it was not building any sort of success. And man, at that point it was like, shoot, I just need to be done with this. So that was like an 8-month trial, burned up all my savings, and I was barely making my mortgage. I remember having to get a side job with a buddy to put some siding on a house, in the middle of December of that year. And it was losing my hammer in the snow and just being like, why, God, like I thought I could build this thing. And so then I got a job at a company called Elite Nutrition for a little bit. And that too was just frustrating. It was like no customers coming in, and it didn't feel like I was accomplishing anything with my life. And it was just barely making the bills. And so that's like two kind of failures stacked up to each other. And I can't believe I didn't mean to fast forward through this part too. Then I opened a smoothie bar. So
Okay.
I don't even know if I told you that, but
No.
I had a smoothie bar inside Harbor Athletic Club in Middleton. And that's where I jumped to from Elite Nutrition. So here I am, making smoothies, and we're trying to sell some supplements through there. And it was paying my bills. I was making 30-40K a year, and super thankful for that, because that was my first truly successful business, and the network marketing thing failed. The management of the next spot, kind of failed. It wasn't what I had hoped it to be. And then this little smoothie bar was paying my bills, and I was so thankful. And that was my sort of breakthrough, 2 failures I kind of envisioned in a row. And then the smoothie bar is a success enough to pay my bills. And so at that point, it was about a year after that. I'm trying to think the timeline here. That would have been 2009 is when Becky and I had decided maybe we should open our own nutrition store. And so then we were trying to juggle both, the smoothie bar and the idea of launching Apple Wellness. And as soon as I stepped away from the smoothie bar, it's I don't know if it was having high schoolers and college kids just kind of keeping an eye on it or what, but sales fell through the floor, and it was barely breaking even. So we ended up shutting that sucker down, and that it depends how you look at it, provided for a while. But in my mind, ultimately, long term, it wasn't a successful business in the sense of the original dream behind it, which was to be a source of income and a continual service to that community for the long haul. So you kind of, if you look at it that way, it's there really was sort of 3 sort of failures connected to each other. So that spoke to me, a lot. And you try to tell yourself the truth and listen to the truth and not negativity or lies or whatever. But it was okay, so those 3 things stacked together. Tim, why do you think you're going to be successful now with Apple Wellness? Now the stakes are way higher. You have your house on the line. You want your wife to be able to stay home with your kids to be with them. You want to homeschool, that kind of stuff. How are you going to provide for this? So it was freaky, man. And I didn't really have a reason to believe that I would be successful. I just didn't, based on some of my previous failures. So it's amazing story. When I get to hear it out loud, because I don't tell myself the story that much. So this is kind of cool.
Sure.
It's cool to hear. It's like, man, wow. Okay. That's really neat.
Yeah. As you just said, I mean, you had failure after failure, from, overcoming the challenges of drugs and getting in trouble with the law in high school and your later teenage years, to, getting let go from a job, to kind of failing at another job. You just had failure after failure after failure. And I think so many of us in our lives, we have these continual failures, and we can choose to go one of 2 routes, right? We can either accept that failure and say, okay, well, this is just how my life is destined to be, or we can turn it around. So, I mean, honestly, for you at this point, what was it that allowed you to actually believe that you could succeed after you'd failed several times?
Gosh, dude. I mean, I remember every single morning before I go and open that shop, every single morning before I open the shop, saying a prayer and just going, okay, here we go again, God. Man, help me get sales, help me stay passionate for the reason I'm opening this store, help me keep my focus on you and on people, and not just, the utility bill that's coming in 2 weeks and how I got to sell some more vitamin C to pay that bill. Every morning, man, I think it was a structured life in the sense of, man, feed your spirit good things. Remind yourself daily who you are, what you're here for. Stay focused. When your mind talks, we're always thinking. You can tell yourself the truth, or you can tell yourself lies. And I think too, there's a little bit of, it's not about how many times you fail. It's about the fact that you get up again, and that you push again, and that you re-sign up for a wholehearted devotion to whatever you're called to do. And as we look through the heroes in history, I would just become inspired by those people and what they did, and how they didn't give up, even if death was their final, end. Anyway, so yeah, just, I think that daily, but I would get discouraged, dude, all the freaking time. I mean, it would be like, am I going to learn a lesson on bankruptcy here? For the first year, it was like,
Sure.
Are we even going to make it 2 years even? And yeah, it was, yeah, it's a good question, man. It's comprehensive answer. I would think about my wife, I mean, she's risking everything with me.
Yeah,
I think about
let's talk about that for a second. You said your
yeah,
faith, and obviously the entire time, like, your wife is with you. So take me through that. Like, how do you obviously have a very supportive wife during this whole process, and a lot of people, I think, are concerned about starting something because maybe their spouse won't be on board. So how, through this entire time, is your wife still on board with you? Like, how, like, take me through, like, when you first, met her to this point, like, how were you able to keep her support through this entire time?
yeah, that's a testament to her, how noble and honorable and how giving she is. Uh, she was still working, full-time job until we had our baby girl, Rosemary, 8 years ago now. So she was my biggest support. She would be the one that would build back up my ego as I came home deflated, with another slow day. She would be the one that would pray for me when I was feeling especially depressed. She'd be the one to remind me that we're moving in the right direction, as I'd show her graphs or, history of sales, and she was always the one there, through everything. Even when I was a jerk, I seemed to take out my anger on her. I seemed to take out my stress on her, is a better way to say it, compared to anybody else. And even when I'm a jerk, she was the one to say, hey, you're made for this. You get back after it. And so she was like that, along with her sacrifices, because all of that is sacrifice. And the fact that we got a baby on the way now, and it was 2011, we got a baby on the way too. It was like, oh, it's time to hit it, every day. And but to add to that, it's keeping it about the vision for me has been huge. Like, don't get distracted by the sales, keep the souls in front of you, And so I would have, part of this prayer would be like, the souls before sales, and how important that is. Because every time I got that flipped and just saw a dollar sign on somebody's head, then it'd kill the mission. I wouldn't be able to help them as much. And so, yeah, it's support from Becky was huge to help me actually get after that mission every day.
Absolutely. Support from your wife, support from God, support from everyone in your life, and believing in your mission clearly allowed you to keep going at that point. So it's 2010, you open up. So now your store is called The Healthy Place, formerly called Apple Wellness. So you open up Apple Wellness, you and your wife. And at this point, you have your house on the line. And I know you mentioned to me that, not long after that, you found out your wife's pregnant. Like, take me through the first couple of years of opening a business, because I think there are a lot of people out there thinking about starting a business who are in the early stages of their business and have all this stress on them. Like, How do you move through that, and how do you move forward?
Yeah, good question. Good questions. I love entrepreneurs. I love those that are willing to risk everything um, for the sake of a dream, and that can manifest itself in different ways. One example I like to highlight is people that create charities or people that become a missionary, and they literally lay down their careers. But a business is kind of the same thing, because you're laying down your life, you're laying down your career, you're laying down security for something greater, and that's freedom. Freedom to help people in a greater way, freedom for your own self and family. And so I think having that spark, having that drive for something greater, having that inspiration for impacting the world in a positive way, I think having that is the most important, or one of the most important pieces to have in place. And so if I'm speaking to somebody that wants to start a company, like, I'm kind of a jump before you look kind of guy, but I'd be like, do it. This is in you for a reason. This is what you're good at. You can do it. You can. And even if you do fail, it will be so worth it. And you'll get through it, and you'll get to the next thing. And even if you fail that, you'll get to the next thing, and you will be successful. It's like a mindset, and it's like not giving up until you obtain the prize, until you reach the prize. And that's my story. That's so many stories that we hear about. Abe Lincoln is a good one. He tried for president like 16 times or something and failed. And
Yeah.
it's just like, yeah. So I'd say do it would be my first thing. Be wise, seek some counsel. I love a young entrepreneur throwing out there like, hey, I'm considering this. And then mentoring them or spending some time with them or answering questions just to like do what I can to set them up right. But even if you don't get set up right and you go for it, like you make mistakes, we all do. Every single story has them. And yet you can work through those mistakes. You can learn things that'll guide you for the rest of your life, help you the rest of your life, and you can overcome those things. So I think the greater loss in life is if you don't do what you were called to do. I think that's like one of the greatest losses, and we should avoid that at all costs. So day to day, tell yourself the truth, pray daily, surround yourself with the right people, press every day, be thinking about it. Oh, how can I sharpen my game, stronger, better, faster, etc. How can I be a step better than what the status quo is out there, whatever it is. So if it's service or if it's, sports, like whatever it is, how can I sharpen my game? How can I up the ante? Even if it's 10%, sometimes I look at it like just being 10% better than my competition is going to like put me in a whole nother category of awesome. And how can I do that, versus having an idea of how can I be perfect? That can be so intimidating and difficult, obviously, to obtain. So just those little incremental increases, you spin that huge flywheel and you figure it out each day and you accomplish the dream.
In case you can't tell, Tim is passionate about this topic. I think you just heard it right there. Very, clearly leading from a standpoint of helping and serving others has served you well and allowed you to get through those first couple of challenging years. When you mentioned there were all sorts of challenges and there were times where you felt like giving up, but the fact is you kept pushing through. And as I was talking with you in our chat beforehand, just to go over things, you talked about there were a couple of turning points in your business. So the first one really happened to you, I believe it was in like 2012, 2013, a couple of years after you had opened up. You first went on the radio. So take me through that story and how that helped boost your business at that point.
Yeah, no matter what kind of business you have, something I wish I understood earlier was you got to market yourself. And for the first couple of years, I steered clear of things like radio and television, and it was too expensive. I mean, first off, I didn't have the money. Second, if I could somehow spare it, it seemed way too risky to risk it. So I had a mentor, a business mentor that said, hey, you got to get on the radio, bro. You have something to offer our community that's powerful. And how are you going to get the word out if you don't advertise, if you don't market yourself? So when I got on the radio, it was the first month, we tried a campaign that spoke to weight loss and got nothing, zero sales, $3,000 wasted. Month two, hey, let's advertise on digestive care via supplements. And so many people are struggling there. Nothing. Month two, zero sales from it. Another $3,000 wasted. Oh, and I'm thinking I'm white knuckling it at this point, going like, shoot, Dave, my business mentor, like, I hope you're right about this because it's not working. So month three, it was like, okay, energy. Everybody's fatigued, stressed, like via supplementation. How can we strengthen your energy and manage your stress? Again, nothing. Third month, just total fail. And then month four, it was like chronic pain, how to naturally manage your chronic pain. And from that point, dude, it was like immediately customers started flowing in. I don't know what it was, if it was my message, the specific way it was said, if it was the product, if it was a combination, but man, it was like 5 to 7 new customers per day. And I was singing, bro. I was singing a song and it was like, it's working. So I rode that wave and I just increased it. There's a percentage of our gross profits that we take and we put towards marketing and advertising. And as we grew, I kept increasing that amount that I gave to marketing, and it just fed off each other and kept growing from there. So that was a huge turning point, was when I actually got on the radio. And for different businesses, it might be different things. Maybe it's social media more for some, maybe it's more a blog, maybe it's more radio, TV. There's a lot of different ways to advertise, but the idea is you got to market, you got to advertise. Don't not do that.
Right. So you literally you got on the radio, first month, nothing. Second month, nothing. You're dropping $3,000 every single month. And at the time you said you didn't have that much to drop. Like, you were still a growing business. So then finally month 4, you start talking about joint pain and people have injuries, and all of a sudden that works. So the fact of the matter is you kept trying and you kept pushing forward, which really seems to be the moral of the story here. For those listening, is Tim has failed and failed and failed repeatedly, but because he's so passionate about his mission, he continues to push forward, and eventually success comes because he believes in the mission so much.
Thank you, man. Yeah, that, as you say it and sum it up that way, I think I might have more failures than successes, and that's okay.
Yeah, failure as long as you learn from it. So yeah, I mean, at this point, like, you're growing and the business starts to take off, and there was another big turning point for your business which really helped it take off, and that was around 2017. So in 2017, CBD oil hit the market hard.
Yeah.
And according to, I have a couple stats here, according to New Frontier data, it grew by 40% that year and hit $367 million in sales in the U.S. And a prediction I read on TechNavio said it could be a $3.5 billion industry in the U.S. by 2024. And I know this was something that your store specifically kind of pioneered in the area with CBD oil. So I want you to take people through what CBD oil is, what your hesitations were in the beginning, and what it did for you and how you went about it.
Yeah. When the CBD conversation first started in Wisconsin, and I was being sold by my vendors and everybody, not everybody at that point, but people started to talk about it, I didn't want anything to do with it, because if you remember back to my teen years, like, marijuana was such a negative influence in my life, and I would smoke pot all day, and I was lazy and, didn't care about things. And I couldn't give it up when I wanted to because I loved it so much, kind of thing. And I didn't want to bring that back into my life in any sort of capacity or any sort of way, much less encourage the community to take part in something that was connected to marijuana. So I
just pause for just a second there. So for those who are listening who don't know, so tell people just like very briefly, like your elevator pitch, what is CBD oil?
Yeah. So CBD is the active compound from hemp, which is a different crop than medicinal marijuana. CBD has all the benefits of medicinal marijuana without the high. and it is powerful for the body. It strengthens a system called the endocannabinoid system, which is responsible for bringing balance to the body. So if you picture the endocannabinoid system like a distribution center, it distributes these little keys called cannabinoids. And those little keys, or the cannabinoids, hit different cannabinoid receptors in the body. So picture like a lock and key. That key will unlock benefits in different spots and parts of the body, different systems in the body. So regardless of what the issue is, the endocannabinoid system's responsibility is to help fix that issue in the body. So whether somebody has cancer, dementia, headaches, heart disease, digestive problems, skin issues, this endocannabinoid system's responsibility is to like fix that problem. So your body's always working to heal itself. And if you can strengthen the body to do a better job of healing itself, then it's pretty cool, the outcomes there. So one nutrient that happens to really powerfully strengthen that endocannabinoid system is CBD oil, which is why it's so successful for chronic pain because of its anti-inflammatory benefits, so successful for stress anxiety because of how it strengthens a part in the brain called the hippocampus. Part of why it helps with digestive issues so much is because we have all these cannabinoid receptors in the gut. So CBD is like powerful, but back when it was first introduced, I was like, no, it's marijuana, it's bad. And so it took some of my heroes in the industry to be like, Tim, you care about people and you want to help people. You need to look into the CBD thing. So I very nervously and carefully started to bring it in. I mean, I was worried, I'm trying to be an outstanding citizen, and I'm going to start shouting to my customers that, you should take CBD oil from pot, or that's my understanding at the time. I thought it was like supporting the drug trades or something. So I took a bit of a learning curve to realize, okay, this is two different crops, and the CBD can't get people high. You don't have to worry about that. It's totally legal, and it's going to help people get off the drugs. It's going to help people get off both the pharmaceutical drugs, and we have people coming to us saying, hey, I'm trying to quit smoking marijuana, and I've heard CBD can help. Is that true? Like, well, yeah, it helps with addictive types. Not that marijuana is addictive, but it strengthens your system with how, because a lot of people smoke pot because they want the stress management, and CBD helps with that stress management. So yeah, I brought it in and I started recommending it for chronic pain and stress, and holy buckets, was it working. So then very carefully, I started to prayerfully change our marketing message from this chronic pain treatment with curcumin, which is what wave I had been riding for like years at that point, to CBD. We have CBD, we have quality CBD, and CBD can help. And then that just blew us up. I mean, we were, I was mentioning, 6 to 7 new customers a day previous to 50 to 70 new customers per day. And we had 2 stores at that time. And that went on for 18 months, dude, of just 50 to 70 new customers per day.
Incredible.
And just blew us up. That's where we jumped to 4 stores, and from 6 employees to 30, and, just intensive growth, a little bit too intense, but I had fun with it.
Yeah. So this is from 2017 to 2019. So you opened the 2 new stores in 2019 because of this growth.
Yeah. Yep. I mean, it allowed us to open the 2 new stores. It allowed us to provide more jobs. It allowed us to get really aggressive in our marketing and our messaging for not just CBD, but all things health and wellness and natural alternatives, and how we want to be a support to our medical community and a second natural alternative, and work alongside of our medical teams in Madison. And to the point where, we have, 3 dozen plus medical doctors and sending people our way, and certainly integrative doctors and naturopathic doctors. And really was pretty cool to watch what originally started as, I didn't ever think I'd have to hire another person. Like, honestly, I really didn't, let alone to have 4 stores and, dozens of employees. That was just such a shocking reality that I was getting to live. And so it launched us in some pretty cool ways.
Like you said, jump before you look, right?
Yeah. I love that. I love the reality that each of us can press and press and press till we find the gold, till we find what we're looking for, what we're searching for. That if you don't give up and you keep running, opportunities will arise. And if you're on your game, if you have the right attitude and you are looking for those opportunities in your specific field, they will present themselves. And just like a trampoline, you get launched.
Love it. And I'm sure during this whole time, I'm sure you get this question a lot or think about this a lot, but online sales are continuing to grow at a rapid rate. While the supplement industry is growing as a whole, according to the Nutrition Business Journal in 2016, online supplement sales had a 14% compound annual growth rate over the previous decade, compared to just about 8.5% for brick and mortar businesses. So almost double the growth. And Amazon has really become a juggernaut of sales, contributing about 3/4 of total online vitamin and supplement sales.
Wow.
How do you compete against, how do you compete against Amazon I'm going to be honest, I've bought a lot of supplements through online. I've bought stuff at your store as well, but how do you compete against Amazon, and what types of things do businesses in general need to think about when you have all these up and coming companies against like a brick and mortar business like yours?
Yeah, I think the most important thing I could tell people is you have to evolve. You have to be aware of what's going on around you. You have to be aware what's growing, things like online sales, like Amazon, and you have to differentiate yourself, and whether it's your mission. So for me, our story, our mission statement of impacting, empowering, educating every customer to learn, grow, and create a lifelong foundation of health and wellness. Like, for our customers that know that that's our mission and that's what we're fighting for every day, that resonates with people and they want to be a part of your mission because it's a powerful one. Other things that are important to evolve. Our online is growing faster than our brick and mortar at this point. And it's because what you just said, dude, it's like people want to shop online. They want technology, especially in a season with COVID-19 running around. It's like live chat options that we have, same day delivery, those things that we can do to outperform places like Amazon. Amazon can't get to Dane County in the same day. So that's something we provide, the same day delivery that people are wowed by. Always free shipping. Like, even if something is costly, so even if I lose money on a sale, it's better to do free shipping, because anything you can do to reduce friction with your customers to make it easier, a better customer experience where they enjoy that. Being a story brand, where you're making the customer the hero through the process of whatever you're doing. All of these elements are huge parts to how to overcome that which is around you. And I think it probably all comes back to partly as well is being your own worst competition. I like to try to keep that mindset of I create the ceilings on my business, and I am in competition with myself to become better. And the questions are, for me, it's not how we can outperform Amazon it's like, no, the Amazon's a great company, they're over here. It's how can we educate our customers better? How can we help our community in a greater way? How can we inspire more people? And if I just keep my focus there, it's beautiful. That's the growth that's continually grown versus getting distracted. I've had seasons of that too, where I get distracted by competition, and then all of a sudden you're trying to play catch up and you're not really playing to your own passions and your own mission. So I think keeping it focused on, being better yourself and how you can serve your customers in a greater way.
Absolutely. Love that. How you just said it there. Important to innovate, pay attention to trends, listen to your customers. And that has allowed you to grow no matter what else is going on in the world.
Yeah. And just never quitting. I have so many micro and not so micro failures, I could tell you, with websites that we've had to completely trash, with SEO programs or different companies we've hired for this or that was a complete waste of money, complete fail. And it's like, just no, we're never going to give up. We're never going to stop pressing. We're never going to stop trying to help people and becoming greater. And that's, to me, that's like half the fun of what I get fulfillment in. It's like, it's like the trial itself overcoming. It's like the challenges themselves overcoming, and just finding ways to get over a hurdle. And, I think if I ever were to like arrive or to get on top, I would just, jump back down the mountain just to do it again, because that's half the beauty of life, are the challenges and are the trials and are the discouragements, and getting through them together with those that you care about and love. And to me, that's inspiring.
Absolutely inspiring, for sure. And along this entire journey, you've got a wife, you've got 3 young kids. I know family is really important to you. How do you maintain balance between family life and work life, especially during the time when your company is growing at this rapid a rate? In general, I mean, I think so many people out there are like, okay, I want to grow this business, but am I going to sacrifice my personal life along the same line? So how do you go about approaching work-life balance?
Oh, I just laugh because it has been such a battle and such an intensity. And if I brought my wife in here, it would be interesting to hear what she would say. Um, she's been so supportive through so much. It's boy, I have not found a balance. And I think having boundaries is, for me, the most important thing, because I'm so driven and passionate to care for the business, care for my staff, care for my customers, that it's really actually easy for me to let that get out of hand and let that take precedent over my family, which isn't healthy and actually isn't what I want. And so it's been, running into a wall again and again there and usually that wall is called Becky, where it's like, oh shoot, I did it again. I don't want to do it again. I'm sorry. And re-signing up for that devotion of that right priority structure. So for me personally, because I am constantly sort of drawn or tempted to be, on my phone working when I'm outside on the playground with the kids or whatever, is to have boundaries and have pockets. So for me personally, it's like the pocket of breakfast time. I'm making breakfast for the kids, and from 7 o'clock to 8 o'clock or 8:30, like that's my breakfast morning kid time. And then dinner time, we have dinner together every night together. And we weren't able to do that for a lot of years, but I've been thankful for that for the last couple of years. Dinner every night, hey, you get home 5:30, and from the time you get home to the time you put the kids to bed at 7:30, that's on lockdown. Phone goes in the drawer. And then Sundays, that's my day off. So I work 6 days a week right now, and Sundays, that's family day. It's protected, it's guarded, it's rare that you'll ever catch me doing work there. So again, not that I've always been perfect in those 3 things, but that's examples of. And then also Becky and I elected to be very intentional about traveling more, since we're able to do more work from our laptops now, and we can work from here or from there. Going on a few trips per year has become really important too, because it just forces that time, that family time, and protects what we want to build. So I think boundaries are huge.
Boundaries sounds like being intentional about scheduling time for your family. Like you said, your phone is away. You are focused completely on them. And, as I think we all work on, it's always a work in progress, but that's something that you're clearly very intentional about.
Got to be. Yeah. And just fight for that, and you mess up again and again, or at least I do. But man, keep that as, a sailor, when they cross the, Atlantic or Pacific back in the day, they look to the stars to make sure they're aligned each night. And even being off just a little bit, they could end up in South America instead of North America. So I love that picture, that idea of like every day, kind of like, you look into the stars and making sure your rudder's pointed in the right direction. Because again, that little change can change your whole life.
Amen. Amen. All right, a few final round questions now. So clearly, to have this kind of success, you have to have some sort of routines and rituals established in your life. You mentioned, prayer being one of them. So take me through, like, what is your morning routine? What are some of your daily and weekly rituals you practice for success?
Yeah, that's a good question. And again, not always on these, but when I'm doing what I want my life to be like, I wake up, first thing is I have a quiet time with the Lord. I'll read a little bit out of scripture, the Bible. I'll say a prayer for the day, and give my life over to Him, so to speak, and say, hey, I'm not in the driver's seat here. This is your life. This is your business. I trust you with it, which is pretty cool, because that takes a lot of the stresses away when I remember that fact. that he started this thing, put that in me. And so that's huge. Eating, like just not taking care of myself while working too hard and not eating. And it's, gone through seasons. It's part of why I started coming to the gym that you coach at Functional Integrative Training is, man, I was down to like 127 and 127 pounds and just not looking okay at all. And,
Sure.
with your help and you guys over there, I'm up to like 150 now. So just pumping the
Nice.
iron and working out has been a wonderful addition to my life. And actually eating food's important. Man, once a week, going to church with my family is really special to me. That sort of is a special time where I sort of, again, realign my life to truth and, look into the stars, so to speak, and making sure I'm pointed in the right direction. And it opens up good conversations with Becky, as we look at our lives and are our lives what we want them to be? Are we raising our kids the way that we want to? Having some of those conversations are really huge. For me, another daily, ritual, if you will, is really maximizing the time that I'm given. So I have this picture in my mind of, we all have 80 years on earth, if we're lucky. And, do we want to make each day count? And do you want to impact each person that you talk to? And do you want to make a difference? And for me, there's a strong drive there that reminds me like, man, we do not want to waste time. So let's try to be efficient. Let's try to maximize. And that's been really helpful to me too, just to give me that drive throughout the day.
Thanks for sharing those, Tim. And I know you're a big fan of continually staying sharp and educating yourself. So what do you do to stay sharp? Like books, podcasts? What do you do?
Yeah, well, I listen to all your podcasts, and try to be like Luke. That's my number one principle. Boy, yeah, a couple things. So it's always been important to, I think a lot of people to have some sort of mentor. And if you don't have that, to seek that out. So for, the last 15 years or so, I've always wanted to seek that out, and I've sought that out to have mentors in my life that I can go to, that I can learn from and be inspired by. So that's been a huge part. So that's encouragement to anybody listening is seek out a mentor or mentors in whether it's in your industry or what you're trying to accomplish business wise, or whether it's in your spiritual life or whether it's in your family life. There's different mentors you could have there. So that's huge. Leadership, we can all, we all lead in one way or another. And whether it's just ourselves, flipping burgers, it sounds small, but it's huge. Leadership of your life is huge, and we all lead others. So leadership books like John Maxwell or Dale Carnegie, Winning Friends, Influencing People, or leadership books, love that stuff. And just staying, the Bible is my favorite book, as cheesy as it sounds. It's all the principles that I try to live life off of come from there. And my largest inspiration has come from there as well. So I think those things are all important to me. Jocko, all these guys.
Yep. Gotta love Jocko Willing for sure.
Yeah.
Two more. All right. Two more questions here. So first one is, people have been listening to now. They might be like, okay, Tim's a really good guy. I want to find out more about him. Where can people find out more about you?
Yeah. Yep. Get my computer plugged in before I go offline here.
Oh, sure.
So, sorry about that. So first off, I love helping people, whatever it looks like. So whether you're starting a business or you just got, questions about life or whatever, Tim@apple-wellness.com is my personal email, Tim@apple-wellness.com. And you can email me on anything, anytime. I just love being a contribution to somebody's life in any respect. So that always works. Any sort of supplement questions, my expertise is in supplements, vitamins, what the natural world has to say about different diseases, conditions, health problems, or just living a higher quality of life with better energy, less stress, more mental clarity and focus. So that is, of course, a resource. My website, findyourhealthyplace.com, is a great resource. There's a live chat on there that you can chat with our wellness consultants, or you can contact me through there as well. So yeah, those are great resources. We have 4 brick and mortar stores in the Madison, Dane County area, website for everywhere else in the world, and love to be a resource in any way that I can.
And we'll include those links in the show notes here. And last question I always like to finish with is, so you said we might have 80 years on this earth if we're lucky, right?
Yeah.
When it's all said and done, let's say you have your family next to you, you've lived the life that you wanted to live. When it's all said and done, how do you want to be remembered?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And even now it gives me goosebumps to think about, because it's so easy to get off track from what you actually want to be remembered as. Impact. If I were to choose one word that I want on the tombstone, it's like impact. This was a guy who impacted his family, who impacted people on the earth, a lot of people on the earth, and helped people and cared about others more than himself. He worked to impact, whether it was a cashier at Target, or Walmart or something, or whether it was a customer in his store, or whether it was a friend. Like, that was his mission every day, was to impact somebody, to inspire them, to encourage them, to add a little bit of light to their lives. And that's how I'd want to be remembered.
Such a giver, wanting to leave impact in the lives of others. Tim, we really appreciate you coming on the show today and sharing your story and sharing your knowledge and expertise with us. Again, Tim, thanks for coming on again.
So happy to be a part of this, man. And thank you for the gift of being able to help out and be a part of this.